So hello everyone and welcome to a little beginner's guide for Magia record. Now there will be time codes in the description of this video that get you to each of the individual chapters that I'm going to talk about, starting with a quick overview of combat. If you think you've already got a pretty good understanding of the game and you're just looking for some more tips that might help you get started from someone who's played the game for over 2 years on the Japanese servers, so I do have a section at the very end of this video that you can jump to with the timecode where I'm gonna give a lot more in detail and more important information and tips for someone who is new to the game, like for example more about the meta of the game that might be important to know for someone who's starting and who wonders what the meta is like, or if you should save or pull for specific goals or anything else that might help you on your journey. So yeah, but for now let's get started with the combat stuff. So let's get started with the basic combat overview. If you've played the tutorial, I'm going to go through a bunch of stuff that was already in the tutorial, but I'm going to give more detailed information and look at some stuff that the tutorial either didn't show or maybe skipped over a bit too quickly and gives a bit more context. So first off, I'm just going to select a stage right here, and I'm going to select support. You can select the type of support, and you can see on the bottom left which enemies will appear, like what element the enemies will have, and according to those elements you can then pick elements that counter those elements. Like for example, I could pick a forest character to counter these, but for the most part it doesn't really matter too much. You just want to have a support that is really strong, which means it's level 100 and it has as many Memoria on the right side as possible. For example, this one has 4 Memoria, we have 3 right here, this one only has 2. So you just want to pick anything that has 4 Memoria that looks strong, and for the most part that's going to be fine until you learn the more finer details for later. But just for the beginner, just pick anything that has level 100 and 4 Memoria right here. So for example right here, Lord Afi, he's a whale by the way. If you find Lord Afi in your support list, follow him immediately so you get him as much as possible. So now I'm going to select my own team. This is the team that I've already pre-built. I can select whatever I want to put on here from all of my characters on these individual spots. Now you can see on the top here we have some little icons that show us where in this formation the individual character will stand. You can even move the support character around if you want to. Now there are a bunch of formations you can get. This is the standard formation. Don't worry about formations. Formations are pretty much pointless for most of the game. There are a handful of formations, especially when you get into the more advanced stuff and also into PvP, that are really important. But for like 95% of content, and even more than 95% of content, you don't ever need to worry about formation. You're just gonna stick to the main one, and you wanna make sure that your most powerful character is in the center. And that's pretty much all you need to worry about. Just stick your most powerful character in the center, and then just don't ever think about that ever again until you've played the game for a few months and want to go a bit more advanced. So I've run into the battle now, and something to notice, of course, we have 5 attack discs that we can pull from. Now all of the characters that you have, all of their discs are going to get thrown into a pool, and then from that pool each turn 5 random discs will be drawn. Now if you've played Fake Round Order before, I can tell you there is no 3 count, there is no card counting in this game. So every turn it's completely random which 5 cards you get, and you can't influence it and you don't know what you might get next turn. It's completely random. Now that we have our selection of cards, what discs or cards or discs, I might say this interchangeably, and which 3 would we like to use? I want to talk a little bit about combos. So as the tutorial might have shown you, there are different kinds of combos. For example, if I had 3 Excel discs, I could select 3 Excel discs, and that would trigger an Excel combo. If I had 3 charge discs, I could get 3 charge for a charge combo, and if I had 3 blast discs, I could get 3 blasts for a blast combo. What do all of these different combos do? Excel is pretty important if you are trying to use Magia, which is your basically ultimate attack, which you get if you collect 100 MP or more. And if you get an Excel combo, what it does is every single character on your field is gonna get 20 MP, even if they are not part of the combo. If anyone triggers an Excel combo, everyone gets 20 MP. So that's really good, which means that characters that don't actually have Excel discs themselves can still get a lot of MP if you have other characters on your team that use Excel combos. Now, what else is there? There's charge combo, which is probably the worst. I can tell you that right now as a little veteran tip. Charge cards and charge discs are very, very bad. But don't worry about that right now. So what a charge combo just gives you 2 additional charge, and each charge disc also generates 1 charge. And charge points are something that's going to pop up on the top right of the screen if I had one. What charge does is, I'm going to talk a bit about that later. Just know that charge discs and charge combos generate charge points. And Blast is probably the most important disc in the game because Blast allows you to attack multiple enemies at once, and if you trigger a Blast combo, you will then also get a big damage boost for all of your discs in that combo. So that's pretty much basically it. Blast is AoE attack and can stack in damage. Charge generates charge points. Excel generates MP, and Excel combo generates even more MP for everyone. That's your basic and the discs types. Now there's also one more kind of combo that is completely separate from the other 3 combos that I just mentioned, which is the Puella combo. You can see I have 3 discs right now of our favorite lesbian Ren, and what this does, if I select 3 discs of the same character, that means that I trigger a Puella combo. A Puella combo just increases the damage of all discs of the entire combo. It increases the damage of everything by quite a bit. And the great part is, you can get a Puella combo and you can get a disc combo. So you can get an XL Puella combo, for example, or a charge Puella combo, or a blast Puella combo. Now, since I already mentioned that a blast combo increases your damage, and I also told you that a Puella combo increases damage, this is the point where you realize that a Puella blast combo actually deals ridiculous amounts of damage, and that is why characters that have 3 blast discs themselves are called blast gorillas and are extremely powerful. So that's your first lesson right now. Blast gorillas are really powerful because blast Puella combo is an extremely powerful combo. So I'm just gonna use this right here, but before I go, I would like to use these discs a bit more effectively other than just throwing it at the enemy without thinking. And something, if you also come from Fakeground Auto, you might also be a bit surprised by this. You can decide which of your attack hits which enemy. So for example, I can just click down here, excel on this, go up here, say charge on this, and then go into the center, and then blast on this, and it will attack exactly these enemies as I told Ren to attack them. You can always decide who gets hit by what, and that goes for absolutely everything, not just regular discs, goes for Magia discs that we might see later as well, also goes for active abilities, goes for all of that. Now next up, more importantly, I talked a bit about active abilities right there for a second. You have this little button right here, skill, which brings up this screen right here, and this brings up all the different active skills that all your characters have. Now something that is very, very different from pretty much any other mobile game that has a similar fighting style to this is that each individual character does not actually have an active skill. Unless you're playing on the Japanese server, because on the Japanese server every single person actually has an own active skill. But on the North American server, the characters themselves don't actually have active abilities. Instead, you equip Memorias, which are like equipable items, onto characters, and those equipable items give the character an active ability. And what active ability that is depends on the Memoria you equip. So for example, I had a Memoria that's called Awake but the Dream Continues, and this Memoria gives this active ability Guardian, guaranteed guard for near fainting allies, and it also gives HP regen with strength 9. For myself, for 1 turn, so I can activate this right here, and it does exactly as it showed me, and I can also click right here on my Ren, if it actually does. There we go. And you can also see the status change. An enemy actually inflicted me with a debuff, which is blast disc damage down. Oh my god. But here I got the HP regen, I got the guard, takes an attack for an ally. I can also see my 4 Memorias that I have equipped. There's 2 different types of Memorias, but I'm going to talk a bit more about Memoria later. For right now, just know that I have 2 active Memoria equipped right now. Sadly, my Rika also has, or not also, but has no Memoria equipped, which even says right here, so she can't actually use anything right now. Because without Memoria, the character has no active abilities. So, now, something to note. This might seem like, okay, is this really all there is to this combat system? Because this combat system right now seems a bit, well, standard and basic, but there is one mechanic in a Magia record that is pretty unique to Magia record and is the one mechanic that actually makes combat in this game a bit more unique and a bit more complex and adds a layer of something you have to think about. Now, as you might notice down here on these discs, they have these little 3 crystals on the side of the discs. So, for example, my Holy Alina has this charged disc with 3 of these slots on the side, and then also has these 3 other slots, but they are filled in with pink. Now, every single time a character has a disc selected, like the turn before, I selected 3 Ren discs, which means that I had 3 Ren discs selected, and for each Ren disc that was selected, I get a connect crystal. So because I used 3 discs, I got 3 connect crystals, and these connect crystals show up on the discs. So now that I have 3 crystals, I can perform what is called a connect. The tutorial only goes over this a little bit quickly, but a connect basically allows you to give a disc of a character to another character for 1 turn. Now you might know, for example, that in Fake Order, like imagine you drew 2 Buster discs for your Aniki altar, and you drew 1 Buster disc for your Merlin, for example. And you say, man, wouldn't it be amazing if Merlin could just give that Buster disc over to my Aniki altar? Wouldn't that be great? Well, that's exactly what you can do in Magia record. For example, right here, I can see just imagine, for example, that this charge disc for Holy Aina was another disc, okay? Let's say this charge disc over here was one of Rika's discs, which means that I would have only 2 discs for Holy Aina. Now that sucks because I would like to get a Puella combo. Puella combos are pretty strong, so I would love to get a Puella combo. But if I only have 2 of her discs, how will I trigger a Puella combo? Well, I can just use a connect to give over this disc over to Holy Alina. And now Holy Alina has an additional disc for just this turn, and I can use a Puella combo. So this is probably the most important use of connects, is to give other characters a Puella combo even if they otherwise could not be able to trigger one. However, connects also have something different to them, and this is where the actual different characters come in, because so far characters just have discs and stats like attack and defense. What actually makes a character unique compared to every single other character? Because they don't have active abilities, right? But this is where the connect comes in, because every single character has a unique connect effect. So every time you connect with another character, your connecting character will throw a buff over to the character they're connecting with. So right now, if I throw this charge disc over to Holy Aina, my Ren will cast their special connect buff on Holy Aina. And what does that buff do? Shows on the left side of the screen. This connect it gives a guaranteed follow-up attack if target survives. It gives attack up with strength 9, and it gives a guaranteed evade. So the first part, guaranteed follow-up attack if target survives, that's just called chase. They just decide to write it out here, but that's just chase. What does chase do? Don't worry about it right now, what chase does. I'm going to talk about this in a later video. But for now, just know that it gives a whole bunch of buffs to the character you're connecting with. Which is also the reason why, for the most part, you want to start a chain off with a connect. So right now, I'm connecting with Holy Alina as the first disc, which will buff Holy Alina with at least an attack up, which is pretty strong. And these next 2 discs will then benefit from that attack up and do massive damage. Now, if I was feeling fancy, I could also use an active ability that increased my damage even further. And this is basically how you burst in this game. You set up a connect where you can throw a powerful connect buff onto another character and give them a Puella combo, and also have them use active abilities. So you're basically stacking buffs on top of each other through different sources. And by doing that, you can get massive damage. Now, if you wanted even more damage, imagine if my Rika also had connect ready. Then I would not just connect with Ren onto Holy Aina, I would also connect with Rika onto Holy Aina, getting 2 connect buffs in the same turn. So that would also increase the damage even more. So like I said, this is how you burst in this game. You just stack a whole bunch of buffs on the same combo. So this is a Puella combo. Here's the connect, which triggers the buffs. And now Holy Aina has a charge disc. Only for this turn though, and now everything goes back to normal. However, and this is also another cool part, Holy Alina just used 3 discs. One of those wasn't her own, but she still used 3 discs. You know what that means, right? She can now use a connect of her own. So now I could throw a connect over to Rika, because I see that Rika has 2 discs, and I could use next turn a Rika connect. So by throwing connects around, you can keep chaining connects and keep buffing characters. Another cool part is kind of a lot of different characters actually get to do something like this. Like even if you have a really weak character, if a really weak character gets a bunch of discs, they can just throw one of their discs to a strong character with a connect. And now that strong character not only gets the connect buff, but additional discs. So even weak character can contribute more to the fight like this, because they get to throw their discs around and give it to the strong characters. Okay, so for example, right here, I can throw this over and then throw a bunch more up here. I can tell you right now, this Rika is very weak, so it's not going to do a whole lot of damage. But what does the connect do? The connect gives attack up, grants curse, and grants stun on hit. So these attacks will curse and stun their target. Wow, what does stun and curse actually do? I'm going to talk about this later. Like a lot of this stuff that you're going to find here is going to be expanded upon later in a more advanced course. We'll talk about buffs and debuffs and a lot more in detail about everything. But for now, just know that you can inflict debuffs like this as well, because you can give someone a buff where if they attack, they will inflict a debuff onto enemies. So you can see right here, I'm going to throw this back on, and look at that. I can tell you Ren only has 2 Excel discs in her entire disc set. She only has 2 Excel discs, she has 2 blast discs and 1 charge disc, but she was still able to use an Excel Puella combo because someone else gave her an Excel disc. Isn't that amazing? So now you can see that because of that Excel Puella combo, my Ren suddenly shot up in MP, and now I have 122 MP. Wow, that's a lot. Now, now that I have over 100 MP, now if you're starting out playing this game, you're not going to be able to get above 100. You'll be stuck at 100 and you can't get higher. But through some other stuff that I might talk about later, you can increase the cap of how much MP you can have all the way to 200. But for now, let's just say I have 100 MP. This now flashes up the Magia symbol. So once you have 100 MP, you can now have access to the special Magia disc, which functions very differently from every other disc. For one, it doesn't count towards a Puella combo, which means that if I now use 2 more Ren discs, I don't have 2 more, but if I had 2 more Ren discs, this would not count as a Puella combo. It would just be a dry combo with no special effect. So that kind of sucks, right? If I use a Magia disc, I don't get a Puella combo. That's bad, right? But Magia it's your ultimate attack, so it's still worth it to do it because it's your ultimate attack, and it has a whole bunch of other effects on it as well. And something to notice, if you also from Fake Ground Order, if you use multiple Magia discs in the same turn, the later Magia discs will be stronger as well. So you can do Magia combos where the later Magias are more powerful, just like it kind of is in Fake Ground Order as well, but I'm not going to use any right now. I'm going to do something like this, like a combo like this, AA and C, just generates a bunch of Magia. Now, what does charge actually do? I haven't really talked about charge so far, and the reason is that charge is pretty uneventful. The charge disc itself is just a single target attack that does regular damage. So now that I have a charge up here, what does the charge do? Basically, if I now use a disc that isn't a charge disc, it will unload all of the charge points and make the attack stronger. I could also just use another charge disc. If I do this, I would see the charge attack go off, and then I would have 2 charge points. And if I had another one, I'd go to 3 charge points, and it would keep increasing all the way to maximum of 20. But you have to keep using charge discs to keep it up, because if you use any disc that isn't a charge disc, it will unload all the charge points to increase the power of the attack. What exactly does increasing the power mean? Because it doesn't just increase the damage. Here's the thing. If you use a blast disc, it will give a big damage boost to the blast disc. So using something like charge and then blast does quite a good amount of damage. But for an Excel disc, it will only increase the damage a little bit, but what is more important is it will increase the amount of MP that attack generates. So if you use something like C and then an A, this Excel disk will now generate more MP than it did before. So this is also something you can use to generate more MP. Now something rather interesting to note is that also if you come from FGO, you might think like, okay, but what is there something like, can I infuse my chain? Like if I use a blast disc first, does that mean that everything else now deals more damage? Something like this exists in FGO, right? This doesn't really exist in this game. It doesn't matter at all what your first disc is. With one exception, Excel, for some reason, has this mechanic where if you start with an Excel disc, all other discs will now produce more MP. No other disc has something like this. Don't worry about it. But yeah, let's just keep going. We're gonna generate a bit more MP and just blast through this. And now, next turn, I'm gonna use my Magia just to show a bit of a Magia, and then we're pretty much gonna be done with this tutorial right here. I can show something cool off here though. I have 2 characters who can connect. Like this is something where the really big leaps happen. I have 2 characters that can connect, and I have 3 blast discs ready. So I can connect one right here. You can see this one does Excel MP up and critical hit chance. It's not that great. You want to get the better buff first. I'm going to give the really good buff first. Then I can swap down here. And I know this is going to kill, but still. Swap down here, give the second connect, and then do this. Now I have a Puella Blast combo with 2 connects in there, which each are going to buff. And I'm going to throw an active on top of this as well. And this is going to do massive damage. I can even throw a debuff onto enemies now as well. This debuff decreases enemy attack and defense. So now this will do absolutely ridiculous amounts of damage. So let's just see this, and then we're going to be done with the basics of combat. That was 118,000 damage. You probably won't see anything like this in your first few months of playing, but yeah, that was pretty good. 118,000 damage, unless I misread that, but I think it was like 180,000 damage. So yeah, my challenge to you if you start playing this game is deal more damage than 118,000 damage. You'll get there at some point. Like you'll do it at some point, but it's gonna be your first little bit of a challenge, and I'm gonna end it off with special attack of Ren. Woo! And we're gonna move on to the next topic. Oh no, wait a second, there's one thing to talk about. You have auto settings. If you have beat a stage before, you have access to the auto button up here, which will automatically play the stage for you. And will also use active abilities for the most part. One thing to note is if you do this, like I said, you can only use auto on a stage you have beaten before, with the exception of main story, because most of main story you can already automatically play through it on your very first go. Otherwise, for event stories, for anything else, you have to have beaten the stage before you're allowed to use auto. And up here in the settings, you can not only take a look at the missions that you need to do to get bonus achievements. You don't need to do all of these missions at once. You can do one in turn and then the other and then the other. But more importantly, you have these auto settings, and these can just show you, okay, this here means use it whenever ready. This here means use it only on the final waves. It says boss waves, but it's pretty much the final wave of any node, and this means don't use it at all. And if you remove this check up here, you have animation skip for your noble phantasms. Isn't that great, but yeah. Now for real, onto the next part. Okay, so now that you've started progressing through the game, what do you actually do? So after you've played the tutorial, you will be started up with chapter 1, where you just make your way through the introductory stages. You get to draw your fate weave for the very first time, and you get to get at least 1 or 2 more characters onto your roster. And what you should probably do after that is you do go until you have enough to do a 10 pull. So if you go into the Fate Weave section, you want to be able to draw 10 times, either with a 10 times draw ticket or just having 250 gems. And then you just take whatever you get from there. So I can tell you right now, you might be wondering, should I go for rerolls? Do I need to reroll? Or should I just take what I get? Yeah, you take what you get. Here's the thing, some people might tell you, oh yeah, rerolling is pretty good because there are some really strong characters. I can tell you right now, the actual power levels of all the individual characters are not that far apart from each other. Like, yeah, there are some characters that are noticeably weaker than other characters, but for the most part, you can just take any character, level them up to maximum, get them unlocked, uncapped, everything, and they're gonna do you fine for pretty much the entirety of main story content. Like, you can take pretty much any single character and go through the entirety of main story content with that character, maybe like 2 characters in there. So don't worry too much about having the correct characters. Now, when you started the game out, you might get a few characters of lower rarity. Let's say, for example, you get something like Manaka, or you get something like Lela, something like that. Or maybe you get a bit lucky and get either a dark type or a light type girl. Why is it luckier to get a light type or a dark type girl? Basically, if you have a character that is either forest, fire, or aqua, there's gonna be times when you'll face the element they're weak against and they can't really do anything. But light and dark have no one-sided weakness. The only thing that deals super effective damage against light, for example, is dark. But here's the thing, light also deals super effective damage against dark. So the only thing that could potentially counter you is the thing that you're also countering. So it would be nice to have something like a light type or a dark type character because they don't have one-sided weaknesses. But once you're getting deeper into the game, you might feel like there's specific nodes, specific fights. For example, there's a really strong forest enemy. So you might say, okay, if there's a really strong forest enemy, I might want to have a fire character that can deal with that. Because here's the thing, even though light and dark don't have one-sided weaknesses, they also don't have any one-sided strengths where they themselves can excel. But yeah, so for the starters, you take 1 or 2 of your characters that you get through your first initial fate weaves. If you're wondering which characters to focus on, probably better to take a light or a dark character. And then you just take that light or dark character, you go back into the story, and you keep progressing through these first few nodes, first few chapters. And a tip I can give you right now is you might be looking at your team and you might be wondering, how do I build my team in order to progress through that content reliably? Now, you might look at a team like this and think, okay, there's only 2 characters. Look at this team. There's only 2 characters right here as well. There's only 1 character here. What are these teams? Why are there so many empty spots in these teams? What is going on here? Well, what you're looking at right now is peak teams. Or not completely peak, but these are really strong teams, is when you don't actually have many characters. This might be a bit counterintuitive, like why are teams that have less characters in them really strong? Imagine you're playing something like Fate Grand Order, right? I know I keep mentioning FGO a lot, but it's only the most popular one, and I can tell you that in our Discord community, a lot of people say they played FGO in the past, so it makes sense. But yeah, so imagine FGO where you have 3 characters on the field and you have 2 characters in the back line. Or was it 3 characters? It's been like 3 years since I played FGO. And you have some characters on the back line, right? Wouldn't it be greater to have even more backline characters? Let's say you could have 100 backline characters. Wouldn't that be amazing? It would be, but think about it a different way. Imagine if you had 100 characters and they were all on the field at the same time in a game where area of effect damage exists and where you're only drawing 5 discs to choose from and combos are really important. If I had a team, this is a farming team where I just want to have a lot of Memoriae available to me. If you have a team like this, where you, with the support, you're going to have 5 people in there, here's what's gonna happen. You're going to be drawing a lot of discs that will not give you a good Puella combo. And even further than that, if you don't get a Puella combo quickly, or if you get too many different character discs, here's what's also going to happen. It's going to take a while until you get your first few connects off. You might not be able to get enough to connect crystals for one character to connect in like 3 or 4 turns, because you keep getting different characters' discs all the time. And even once a character has that connect ready, you can only connect if that character actually draws a disc. If that character didn't draw a disc, even if they have connect ready, they can't give anyone a disc they didn't draw. So the more characters you have, the more inconsistent your team becomes. So it's of course possible that even on a team like this, on the first turn, I get a Puella combo for Ren. And then the second turn, I can use a connect from Ren onto my Jeanne d'Arc right here. And yes, this is the historical Jeanne d'Arc. This could happen. And then Jeanne d'Arc, for example, gets a Puella combo. She could get a Puella Blast combo. We've seen how powerful that is earlier. That's possible, but it's extremely unlikely. It's extremely unlikely with this team that something like this happens. What's a lot more unlikely is that my Tsuruno and my Yachio are gonna throw their discs in, and I'm not gonna be able to get a good combo off. That's usually what's gonna happen. This is what we call disc pool pollution. All of these characters pollute the disc pool. So if you have a bunch of really good characters, or just in general, if you want to have a strong team and a consistent team, if you want to have a team that's consistent, use only like 2 to 3 characters. When I go through new content, I use this team. That's my character plus any support. You have to use a support. If the game allowed you to go into a battle without a support, I would do that. Because if you have just one character, they're gonna get a Puella combo each turn, and I can have you have a look at my Jeanne d'Arc right here. What does she have? She has 3 blast discs. If I was able to field only her, I would get a Puella Blast combo every single turn. That's pretty powerful. That's pretty powerful. But sadly, it's not that easy. So I have to take another support in there. But hey, the thing is, if you have only one character on the field, they can't connect, right? Because you have to have another character there to connect. So having 2 characters is actually pretty good, because if you have 2 characters, you're always gonna get a Puella combo each turn. It's impossible not to get a Puella combo if you have only 2 characters on the field. Furthermore, once one of the 2 characters has a connect ready, the chance you get to use that connect is almost 100%. Not quite 100%, because you could draw all 5 of the other characters' discs, but it's almost guaranteed that once one of your 2 characters can connect, you're going to be able to use a connect. So with 2 characters, turn 1 Puella combo, turn 2 connect Puella combo, turn 3 connect Puella combo, turn 4 connect Puella combo, and so on. And you see how that is pretty strong. So even if you just started the game out, let's say, as I told you earlier, you drew something like, the character that I was showing you the most of the time was like the light type character, Hazuki Yusa. So let's say you have Hazuki as your initial starter. What you would just do is you would put Hazuki right here, or this is a different formation, but you would put Hazuki on the field, and then just pick a strong support, and you would try to level up your Hazuki as much as possible. And maybe if you feel like, okay, one Hazuki is maybe not enough, or maybe you don't have a light or a dark type and you want to have more variety in elements, you can put another one on there. So I would say about 2 to 3 total characters is what you want to have going through the game, because they will give you the most consistent outcome. If you have 5 characters that are all level 5, or even if, like, let's say you have one character that is level 100 because they're a support. You have a level 100 support and you have 4 level 20 characters. That level 100 support is not gonna get many discs, and it's gonna feel pretty useless, and you're gonna still actually use mostly your level 20 characters because you're just gonna draw those discs. So yeah, just get like 2 to 3 characters. You wanna have a team that either looks like this, or you wanna have a team that maybe looks like this, with the character in the center or whatever. And that's basically what you're going to use to get through most of the game. So that's basically it for team composition. Like I said, the formation doesn't really matter. Like I have a fancy formation right here, but it doesn't really matter. You have Brave Echelon, you put your most powerful character in the center, and that's about it. The only thing you want to worry about is, if I start it right now, my Yachio is in bottom left and the support is in bottom right, so they would get hit by the same blast. So now they don't get hit by the same blast anymore. You don't want characters to be in the same rank of file, so you don't get blasted. That's basically it for basic formations. Let's go on to the next topic. Okay, so in this section we'll talk about how you will actually make your characters more powerful, and how you would try to be able to reach into the furthest depths of all of the content the game has to offer without like farming the same main story stage for like a billion times. So let's say, for example, we have decided on this team. Let's say I just did my initial few fade weaves. I got these two characters. This is Hazuki and Kanoko. Kanoko is crazy, by the way. She's on mushrooms. Let's say you got these two characters and you decide, okay, this is what my team is going to look like. For starters, we're going to have Hazuki in the middle here as our leader, and we're going to have a Kanoko right here. How do I actually go with this team, and how do I take this team and bring it all the way throughout the entire content? So when you start out of the content, of course, like I said earlier, you have your initial like 2 or 3 chapters you go to, but at some point, like in chapter 4 or 5, you might run into the point where you realize, okay, I'm not really getting anywhere anymore. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff you can do and should do. For starters, you have a tab down here that is Magical Girl Stories. Now, Magical Girl Stories are like side stories focused on each individual character that you have. And something that would be pretty nice is, let's say, for example, I freshly drew Hazuki. Then you can go into her Magical Girl story, and you will have the first one unlocked right here. And these first few stages aren't very difficult. They're fairly easy, and I can tell you, if you just have a strong support, you will be able to get through these very easily. Like, if I can just take something like this, take anything, a level 100 support will just drag you through this no matter what your team is. And even if you didn't have a level 100 support, these stages are fairly simple. They're not too difficult to get through. Level 80 support, level 60 support, doesn't matter. Like anything that has a fairly decent high level is going to get you through these stages. Now, why is it important to get you through these stages? Well, first off, they are like 3 stages that you're going to get a bunch of experience for your characters in, but that's not the important part. The important part is, once you beat a Magical Girl story episode, the final battle, like here it's battle 3, on this final battle, you will get an item that is a 50 AP potion. So every time you finish battle 3 of a Magical Girl story, for the first time, you can't farm this, you can't repeat this, but for the first time you beat battle 3 of a Magical Girl story, you get a 50 AP potion. And when you start the game, a 50 AP potion is pretty valuable. 50 AP is quite a lot. Now you have to use a bunch of AP to get through a Magical Girl story, but with the 50 AP you get at the end, it more than makes up for it. So you end in the plus. So basically, when you start the game off and you have, like, let's say you drew a bunch, like 5 or 6 characters, maybe even 10 characters you drew at the start. You want to do their Magical Girl stories at least the first episode. The second episode gets more difficult, and it also costs more AP, so it's not quite that important to do. But at least the very first few episode of every single Magical Girl story, you want to complete those 3 battles, so you get that 50 AP potion for every single one of the characters that you have. You can only do Magical Girl stories for characters that you own, so at some point, if you only have like 6 characters, you have 6 of these to do, so you're gonna run through these fairly quickly. But more importantly, you also get a bunch of story, and some of these stories are pretty fun. For example, like I said earlier, Kanoko is absolutely bonkers crazy, and her MSS is pretty fun as well. So getting a bunch of story on the side of that is also pretty cool, because it gets you more engaged into these characters. A lot of the Magical Girl stories are pretty good. So that's one step you can take. Another step you can take is, once you've done all that and you've gathered a whole bunch of AP pots under your belt, and you've got some other AP pots that you have acquired through other means maybe, how do you now spend all of that AP to make your characters powerful? Well, down here you have the Labyrinth quests, where you have 2 labyrinths to choose from. You have the Labyrinth of Enhancement and the Labyrinth of Awakening. The Labyrinth of Enhancement gives you experience gems, while the Labyrinth of Awakening gives you awakening materials. Pretty much any RPG mobile game has something like this, and they drop different materials depending on the weekday. but it doesn't really matter too much for the experience gems. Like every character can use every type of experience gems. It's just that the corresponding element will give a bit more experience. But that doesn't really matter. Just let's say, for example, right now, even if I wanted to level Kanoko and these would only drop water and light type experience gems, I don't really care too much. It's just important to get these experience gems. So when you start out for the very first time, you're not going to see all of these battles. You're just going to see the beginner battle. They start out very easy and then get a bit more difficult towards the end. But here's the thing. With a level 100 support, you should be able to get through all of these. Like this final one, even if you have only a level 100 support in here, like let's say I only have this character and this team probably still beats this node. And once you've beaten the node, you can do auto battle. And auto battle with a level 100 support should beat any stage, unless you go in there with like the wrong element. Let's say this is like an aqua and I go in there with like a fire type. Then it might get a bit dicey. But apart from that, if you like take a Dark, for example, level 100 Dark beats anything. Level 100 Dark is one of the strongest characters in the game. But as I also mentioned in the section before this, the actual power levels of each individual characters aren't that far apart from each other. Even though there are really strong characters, like let's say Dark is one of the strongest characters in the game, that doesn't mean that you should definitely try and get a Dark because everything else is terrible. No, she's still only a bit better than a bunch of other characters. There's not that much of a power difference between characters, so don't worry too much about that. But anyway, the one in the Dark kills everything, don't worry about that. So now that you have done levels of enhancement for a bunch, you can throw a whole bunch of AP pots. Like use a whole bunch of AP 50 potions that you have and just throw them at this level of enhancement. You'll also get a whole bunch of player ranked experience, so you're going to be leveling up. So this is basically what you're going to be doing for like the first few days. Maybe not days, but maybe like the first day or something. You're just going to do a whole bunch of levels of enhancement. You're going to use those AP pots that you've got from the Magical Ghost Stories, and you're going to get a whole lot of experience gems. Now let's say I've done that a bunch and I've got a bunch of experience gems. You're going to come in here, you're going to find your character that you wanted to level. You use Enhance Magic and you're just going to throw a whole bunch of experience. Like I said, the actual type doesn't matter too much. You're going to throw a whole bunch of experience gems here. If you want to make it a bit faster, you can long tap, which brings this, and then you can make it go a lot faster. So you throw just a whole bunch of these at your character. It does take a bit of CC. CC is basically money. That's basically the most important part about having money. Money allows you to enhance, awaken your characters. So basically CC just is used to make your characters more powerful as a currency. But if you just focus on one or two characters, you're going to be fine. So for example, do this. And now my character is way stronger than before. Let's say I kept doing this and then at some point I would reach level 60. I need to look at something very quickly. I can do it, nice. So once you've gotten a whole bunch of experience under your belt and you have used your experience gems, on this character, let's say at some point, I'm going to fish for a great success here. Oh, I didn't get it. Let's say you have got your character all the way to the maximum possible level 666. Wow, I didn't even check for that. You will see a level max, level 60 out of 60. That's not very nice. We would like to have more than 60 out of 60. You have this section right here where you can awaken your characters. Now, right at the start of the game, you probably won't be able to awaken your characters right away. It's going to take a while until you get all these materials. But let's say you've played the game for like a week or a bit longer and you've got all these materials set in. Once you have all these materials set in, they not only give you buffs, like so for example, you see like at Excel plus 5% or attack plus 7%, all this stuff. Once you have all of that set in, and you also have the currently maximum level, you can awaken your characters. This will be your goal, is to awaken your initial characters. So I want to awaken Hazuki, I want to awaken Kanoko. What does awaken do? It basically resets them to level 1. It also removes all of these buffs right here, which sounds terrible, like it removes my buffs, it sets me to level 1. Why would I do that? The reason is, first off, you get a cool new art, but more importantly, it makes the Connect more powerful, makes their Magia more powerful, and increases their maximum level. Now their maximum level goes way higher than before. So now I can go all the way, let's fish again, until level 80. So now you see I'm at level 63 where I was earlier, but now I can go all the way to level 80. Wow. And now my stats are looking quite alright. Now my stats look a lot better than they did before. So you can look at my stats in here. This is now stronger than it was before. You can also select your card art. Nice. And you can set your buffs again. Now, for example, I can set this, and it doesn't show up on the left that I have this 8% on attack because there's a bunch of mathemagic going on, but don't worry about the mathemagic right now. You can at least look at it, whoops, not like this. Down here, for example, you can see, okay, I have an 8% attack buff on top of everything. So now my character actually looks pretty good. With this character, if I throw a bunch of Memoriae on top of that, I can get through main story. Hey, I only needed to do a whole bunch of a labyrinth for like a day or like 2 days, and now I have a character that should get through main story. However, I did mention that you will have to awaken the character, and if you start the game out, you probably won't be able to awaken right away, but this will be your first goal, at least with the level, at least even if it's a level 60 character, just get that character leveled up. Now, another way to get AP pots, because AP pots are very important when you start the game out. You want to have as much AP as possible, because AP is the currency you use to play battles. If you have the shop in here, so you want to go to the Magia stone shop. You want to do this very quickly when you start the game. And this is probably the most important tab of this. So Magia stones is your premium currency that you have to pay for to get, but you also get it by just playing the game. And I can tell you, this game is fairly lenient with how many Magia stones you get from just playing the game. This game overall is one of the more free-to-play friendly mobile games out there, so don't worry about that. So in here you have the potion set M. For just 25, you get 5 AP potions big, 5 BP potions, those don't matter, don't care about those, and 5 50 AP potions. That's pretty good. You can also refresh all of your AP with 5 Magia stones, and an AP max potion also increases it to your maximum. So you can say that one AP max potion is worth 5 Magia stones. So this is a pretty good deal because you also get the 50 AP potions on top of that as well. Also a small set for this. If you're just starting out, having AP is more important than anything else. Don't worry about pulling those 4-star characters because you're not going to have the AP to let them battle. Worry at the start about getting these AP potions. So right when you start the game, you've done the tutorial, you've done the first few chapters, go into the shop and get these potion sets. I'm not getting them right now because I already have a ton of these potions that I'm not going to be able to get through. But when you start out, you really want to get these as quick as possible. You want to get these 2 sets down here as well. You're going to get a lot of AP potions through that, and together with the AP potions through the story that I told you earlier, the Battle Girl story, you're going to get so much AP. You're going to throw that AP into the Awakening Labyrinth, the Enhancement Labyrinth, and you're going to get all the experience gems, and you're going to use all of that to make your characters have high level. Now, once the characters have a high level, you might be wondering, okay, my character's level 60 now. I need to awaken them. Where do I get these materials? There is some, or rather, first off, you would, now that you have level 60 characters, or level 50 characters if you have a 2-star Magical Girl, you would then just play through more stages of the main story. You would just keep going through main story together with level 100 supports, because level 100 supports together with your level 50 or level 60 characters will get you all the way through most of the main story. And once you've done a bunch of main story, you can actually go into this menu right here. There's a point for items. Quests by materials. Would you look at this? Let's say you need more Shadowtail feathers. You can click this and it shows you where this drops. Wow. And it's sorted by AP cost right now. This is a very, very common material, so you can see which this drops and you can just go into any battle. Now the drop chances in all these battles are very different. But there is a drop sheet I'm going to link in the description that has more detailed information on all of this. But this is also something very nice to fall back on, especially if you have something like this, which doesn't drop in many stages. You can just say, okay, I can just go to chapter 664 and get Curatorhood. Nice. Additionally, you want to take a look at, now at this point when you've gone through a whole bunch of the main story and you have like level 50, 60 characters, you want to take a look at the currently running event. Now, right now, the event that's currently running is Mitama's Special Training, which is really nice because it's a event specifically for training your characters. There's one character that is set. For example, right now it's Homura, the glasses version, and there's one character you get to decide yourself who you want to train. So for example, right now I trained Nanaka. Let's say, for example, you start the game and you also have like Hazuki that I told you earlier. You might select Hazuki and then you can start this training event, and there's specific missions for Enhance and Episode, and you would play the enhancement quest because these enhancement quests give a lot of experience for that specific character that you selected. So for example, I would go in here with my Hazuki, take any support that's level 100 to drag me through, and then now my Hazuki will get a lot of experience, which doesn't matter right now because I'm only level maximum with her, but yeah. So that's another way you can do it. You can also get episode level. Don't worry much about episode level. Episode level doesn't really matter when you're just starting out with the game. Episode levels matters only a bit later, so don't worry about that much right now. But apart from that, the more important part is events give you access to special awakening materials a lot easier. So for example, in this training event, instead of it just being there to train your specific characters, this training event also drops the special material if you beat any quest. And this special material can be used in the special shop for this event. And for example, let's say I still need swallowtail feathers. I can then buy these with the event currency. It depends from event to event which of these materials are available, but once you've gotten characters that are at least a bit decently powerful, like I said, level 50, 60 after the training you've done, you want to look at whatever the current event is and you want to just do the event. Just go into the event, farm the event currency, and then try and buy out the more important parts of the event shop. What is the most important parts about the event shops? Fate Weave ticket. You can get basically free rolls for just playing the event, and you always want to get these Fate Weave tickets. Afterwards, just get whatever you need, probably Rainbow Orbs, because Rainbow Orbs are the most rare material out there and also the hardest to farm. So a lot of people will tell you get Rainbow Orbs first because they're really hard to get. But I will also tell you, just in general, if you really need it right now, for example, I already have the Rainbow Orbs, but I really need rooftop balloons to awaken my Hazuki. I would just get the rooftop balloons and then awaken my Hazuki. So just look through these, look at what you need to awaken your characters. If you don't get what you need for your characters in here, don't worry, the next event is probably going to have it. Apart from that, this is mostly what your progression through the game is going to be like. So to give a bit of a recap, you do the first like 2 or 3 chapters of main story while getting gems or Magia stones, rather. You use those Magia stones to do a bunch of Fate Weaves to get like 2 or 3 good characters. You take those like 2 characters or whatever that you are the most comfortable with, that you feel really good about, probably like 2 or 3 star characters, and you just put them on the team and then do magical girl stories for every single magical girl that you have currently available. The first one, only the first chapter you want to do, but those 3 battles, so you get the 50 AP potion. You also want to get to the shop and buy the potion packs that I pointed out in the Magia Stone shop. They refresh every month. So right now it's the 1st of January, so it's going to restock at the end of January. So I have you all of January to get it if you're watching this in January. And then once you have all of those AP options available, you go to the labyrinth quests, you go through the enhancement labyrinth until you have the master battle available, and then you just keep doing the master battle with level 100 supports to get you a whole bunch of experience gems, and then you use those experience gems to get your characters leveled up. All the while you want to look out to maybe see if you can get some awakening materials you can use, and once a character hits maximum level, let's say I have maximum level right now on Hazuki and I have maximum level on my Crazy Mushrooms Kanoko, then you would do the event and you go to the currently active event, you grind out a bit the event currency, use that event currency to get awakening materials, and then once you've gotten everything from the shop that you need, you might look into the section that I showed you where you can sort by quest. So you look at the drop sheet that I'm going to link below this video on where to get awakening materials, and then you're going to grind out those materials until you can awaken your character to at least 4-star, and then you're going to be great. One last tip that I can give you though is, oh never mind, I'm going to give that tip later in the last few sections. But yeah, time for the next section. So in the last section, I was talking about how important it is to increase the level of your characters, to awaken your characters. But that is not the most important part when it comes to making your characters more powerful. If you want to make your characters as powerful as they can be, you need to use the power of Memoria. So if you've drawn the Fate Weave a bunch, you will have come across Memoria. You might have also seen these available in shops when you play events. Once per day you can also draw the support point Fate Weave, which gives a bunch of Memoria. If you've played FGO before, Memoria are basically craft essences. So you're gonna draw in here once a day. You can draw in here for support points, you're going to get more Memoria. So there's a bunch of ways to get a whole bunch of Memoria. So what do you actually do now with Memoria? Why are they so important? So you have this Memoria menu right here, but before we go into the actual Memoria menu, I need to show you something else, which is that unlike in FGO, your characters can equip multiple Memoria. Now, for example, we're going to look at my Dark right here, my Jeanne d'Arc, who has Magic level 3. What does any of that mean? So, in order to be able to equip a Memoria, a character needs to have a slot for it. Now, each character starts out with having one Memoria slot. Okay? Now, how do you increase the amount of slots that a character has? You increase their magic level, which is oddly worded because Magia level is right below it and looks almost the same. But this is what people usually refer to as slots. Like you might have read something like 4S Dark. I would say this is a 4S Dark because it's a Dark with magic level 3, which means she has 4 slots. How do you actually get more slots? You get dupes. This is what you get dupes for in this game. If you have a natural 4-star, which is an SSR, the most rare type of character in the game, you will need one duplicate of that unit to get one extra slot. So because every character starts out having one slot, if you want to get 4 slots on a natural 4-star, an SSR, you need to draw a total of that character 4 times. So now that I've drawn Dark 4 times from the Fate Weave while she was available, she's not available anymore right now. Like I said, don't worry about her, there's plenty of other really powerful girls. So now that I have drawn her 4 times, I was able to use this menu down here to increase her magic level and therefore increase her slots. Do I have anyone else who I can do this with, just to show it off? Someone better have any. So for example, right now, on lower tier characters, or lower rarity characters rather, for example, Felicia is on her basic level a 2-star character. Hazuki was a 3-star character. Depending on how rare they are, you're gonna need more or less dupes to give them more slots. So for a natural 4-star, you needed 1 dupe to give that character 1 more slot. For Hazuki, which is a natural 3-star character, you need 3 dupes to give that character 1 more slot. And for natural 2-stars or natural 1-stars, they need to have 10 dupes in order to get an additional Memoria slot. So right now my Felicia went from having 1 Memoria slot to 2 Memoria slots. Wow. This might sound like you need to draw the same character a lot, like I would need like 40 Felicias. Actually it's 31 Felicias to get this. But don't worry, there's another way of getting these Destiny Crystals. For one, some events, I don't think there's any event active right now, some events might have an item called a Destiny Bottle, I think it's called, and those bottles allow you to buy dupes of the same character. Now, what you buy is basically the material that a dupe would generate. Basically, I'm trying to say is you can't just buy magical girls unless very specific instances. Like there are a few events where you can buy magical girls, but for the most part, you can just buy you can buy dupes of characters you already have. So let's say I already have Hazuki, I would be able to use the Destiny bottles to buy more dupes and be able to reach the Memoria slots without having to have her. Now, if an event like this isn't currently active that has Destiny bottles, don't worry, there's also Magia chips. Now, Magia chips is something that is not that easy to get. You can get Magia chips through some events, or there are some missions that give them. There's like some really weird ways to get Magia chips, and it's always very limited. But don't worry, you're just gonna get a bunch of them by just naturally playing the game. Don't worry about them, you're just gonna naturally get them as you play. And these Magia chips, you can trade them in to more dupes as well. Dupes that is called Destiny Gems. So for example, let's say I just saw that my Felicia needed more slots. I can try and from the top look at where I can find Felicia's dupes. And once I find it, if I don't accidentally miss it, there we go. I can say, okay, I know I need 10 to be able to get another Memoria slot, so I need like 9 more. If I did this, I would have 10 Destiny Gems and I could get another Memoria slot for my Felicia. So that's another way of getting this. One thing to note is this: you cannot buy a natural 4-star SSR slots in this way. Magia chips only allow you to buy the slots for characters that are either 2-star or 3-star. The only exception is Homura Glasses, because she's like a pseudo 4-star. She's basically Saber Lily. She's not supposed to have the rarity she has. She's basically a 3-star. Don't look at this. It says 4-star, but she's a 3-star. Don't worry about it. So now that we have got a bunch of dupes, we've got a bunch of Memoria slots. Let's say our Hazuki has got a bunch of Memoria slots now. Let's say our Kanuko has a bunch of Memoria slots right now. We are ready to use some Memoria. I can look at my team setup to first off show you how we would actually use Memoria. So I have my team right here. Where is it? With Hazuki and Kanoko. So now you can see the amount of slots right here. And if you click on a slot right here, you can then slot a Memoria into it. So you probably want to filter this by rarity from the top and just use the most powerful Memoria you have. Something to note is that all of these have different effects, and the most important part to understand is there's 2 types of Memoria. There's active and passive Memoria. You know which type it is by looking at the little symbol at the top. If it's the pink symbol, it's an active Memoria. If it's the blue symbol, it's a passive Memoria. So, something to note at this point is that the passive Memoria are always the strongest ones. You always want to have the strongest passive Memoria you can possibly have. What are some strong passive Memoria you might come across in your travels? This is the most notorious, most powerful, most broken passive Memoria in the entire game. I made friends, or just called friends, with other people. So people would be like, I don't have friends, I'm sad. They might just be very lonely, but they also might just mean that they don't have this Memoria. Because this Memoria is extremely powerful. This is, if you get this Memoria, include it immediately on your most powerful character. Throw it on there, level it up. Make sure you have this one available, because this one gives you passive attack up and passive critical chance. Wow. What else is there? There's also this one right here, My Bible, also pretty good because it also gives damage up and it negates curse. Curse is an extremely powerful effect. There's also another good one. What other strong Memoria is that? This is a really good tank Memoria, and so is this. These are like the 2 tank Memorias that you want to have. This one is a gimmick Memoria, but it's also pretty good for damage. Apart from that, if you have a character with a lot of blast discs, you have also this one. I'm not going to go through it too much. I'm just going to give you a little short overview. So something to note about passive Memoria is every single passive Memoria increases your attack stat. So you see right here on the right, you see attack, defense, and HP. Every single Memoria increases HP, no matter if they're active or passive. But passive Memoria will increase attack, passive Memoria will increase defense. And that's one of the biggest reasons why passive Memoria are so incredibly useful. Is this passive Memoria, for example, just equipping it on my character gives me 1,800 attack. If I was level 1, my Hazuki would have like 1,500 attack. So a level 1 Hazuki with this Memoria would already deal double damage. That's how much this actually does. Like we can show my Hazuki does like on base. How much attack do we have? You have like 6,200. 6,200. I'm gonna put 2 powerful Memoria on there that have a lot of attacks. So it has 2,200 on it as well. What also has a lot of attack stat on it. I think you can actually filter by attack. No, you cannot. Oh, I didn't even know that. But we can, for example, let's put this one on there. It's like 1,800. This gives us 4,000 more attack. And there we go. We've broken the 10,000 attack barrier. So just by taking 2 Memoria that have a lot of attack stat on it, you can already increase your attack by a ton. And this is why slots are so important. You want to be able to equip multiple passive Memoria. Now you might think to yourself, I can equip 4 passive Memoria and then my character is gonna deal like 10 billion damage. Sadly, it doesn't work like that, because a character can only equip at maximum, at most, 2 passive and at most 2 active Memoria. So you cannot equip more than 2 passive Memoria. Kind of sucks, you can't stack damage infinitely, but you can still get a lot of damage out there from just having 2 on there at once. Now, why is something like I Made Friends really powerful? Because every single passive Memoria also has an effect on it. For example, this effect has HP regen 5 and Magia damage up 4. The numbers just give you a sort of meter on how strong the effect is. The actual numerical value, I have no idea. For example, this one gives you more MP when hit by a weak element. Like I said, Bile gives you damage up and negate curse, and you want to look for Memoria that says something like damage up or says something like attack up, because the attack up and damage up that these Memorias provide goes on top of the stat they already give. So for example, an I Made Friends gives 2200 attack, and on top of that it gives an attack up buff of strength 4, which is 20%, I think. Was it 25%? That's 25%. So it gives 2200 attack, and it also on top of that gives plus 25% attack. That's a lot. Just putting I Made Friends on anyone instantly turns them into a damage dealing machine. And you can put a second one on top of that. The problem is you can't put 2 of the same on there as well, so you can't put 2 I Made Friends on the same character. But still, you can find other Memoria that have damage up. This one has damage up 5 on it, which is also incredible. So just by putting these 2 Memoria on there, now my Hazuki not only has 9400 base attack, she on top of that has like plus 50% damage. So you can see how incredibly powerful Memoria can be. Now for the active Memoria, they give defense, not that important. I mean, defense, who cares about defense when enemies are dead, right? So active Memoria aren't that important. They are really good if you have like a setup where you say, okay, I want to have a 1-turn instant damage burst setup where I set up everything with like multiple connects on the same character, and then that character uses something like this, which gives critical chance, or another character uses something like this, which makes enemies have less defense, so you can try to chain effects together with active Memoria to increase the damage. But active Memoria pretty much are only really good if you have a lot of slots, or like rather in general, if you have characters that are already powerful and then active Memoria gives them an extra bit of kick or is able to disrupt enemies. They're like the cherry on top. That's the thing. Active Memoria are the cherry on top. But your passive Memoria, that's where the firepower comes from, and that's why they're so important. So basically that's it. So for example, right now, if I wanted to make this team as strong as possible, I would just go for my Memoria and look at the Memoria that give me, that just have like a damage up effect on it. Like for example, this is damage up, this has attack up, even this one even has 2 attack up effects on it, which is one of the most powerful Memoria in the game as well. So you have something like this. So now I have 4 Memoria and 4 passive Memoria in total that increase my damage. And now this team just slays. This team slays. I mean, my Kanoko is still level 7, but let's say I put it all the way up to level 80 as well. This team slays, dude. Like this is, I'm trying to make it not really comical. I wanted to get through to you that a lot of people might tell you something like, okay, let's say you have a really powerful character like Holy Aina. Oh my god, that's a powerful character. You can see that at she's like level 100 right now, and at level 100 she has 9800 attack base. Oh my god, that's so much more than my Hazuki has. I mean, she's level 80, level 100. I mean, that's 20 level difference. But even so, even if she was also level 80, Holy Aina would have a lot more attack. So we'd be like, oh my god, this Holy Aina is so much more powerful. But here's the thing. I only got 1 Holy Aina, so I only have 1 slot for her. With 1 slot, I can only put 1 Memoria on there. I can only put 1 passive Memoria on my Holy Aina. I couldn't even put any active Memorias on there. I can just put one passive Memoria. So because I only have one Memoria slot instead of two, the stats aren't actually that different. The stats is only like a 1,400 stat difference between the two, even though she's 20 level lower, because she has like another stat giving Memoria on there. And not just that, she also has more passive damage buffs from those passive Memoria. So even though I have a level 100 natural 4-star character right here next to just a regular low rarity character, this low rarity character is more powerful than my natural 4-star because she has one more slot. This is basically the most important part to take away. Even if you've watched this entire video until now and thought to yourself, none of this stuff is really important, I know all this stuff anyway, this is still something to take away, because this is something that even this is even something that people that played the game for multiple months still don't quite understand to this degree yet, just how powerful having multiple Memoria and having multiple strong Memoria actually is. I cannot state this enough, how powerful having really powerful Memoria really is. So when you draw the gacha, don't worry about that too much. And I'm gonna go a bit more into this as well in the final section. For now, this has been your education on Memoria, even though I haven't really gone into the Memoria section. I mean, this one just allows you to ascend Memoria. Basically, Memoria, like the magical girls, have a maximum level. If you have multiple of the same, you can increase that maximum level. For example, if I have this one maximum level 15, you can go in here. If you have multiple dupes, you can feed dupes to the same one with this menu, and it increases the maximum level. Pretty cool. The most important part though is on the maximum limit break level. Can I get this one, for example? On the maximum limit break level, the actual effect will increase. So if this Memoria, for example, was on full ascension, it would probably have critical chance 4 instead of 3, or damage after using charge 4 instead of 3. So everything gets more powerful at maximum ascension level. By the way, remember to use the Ascend Memoria menu for this. Don't try to use the Enhance Memoria section for this. This is not how you increase the level. It's the Ascend Memoria. Rather, this is how you increase Ascension. This menu right here is to increase the actual level. Level basically just gives you more stats. So for example, if I throw a whole bunch of stuff, other Memoria on here, you can see that it goes from level 19 to level 20, which increases the stats. So higher level just means higher stats, and you want to ascend so that you can not only get a stronger effect, but also get a higher level, max level, and you can get really powerful Memoria with this. The rest of this is not that important. I mean, you have your Memoria list, which you can just look at every single Memoria. Wow. You have Memoria sets. I've never used these, but you can have Memoria sets. Look, I'm even getting the tutorial, because it's like, wait a second, this is the first time you ever looked at this. Here's the tutorial section for this. But yeah, you can have Memoria sets where you basically say, for example, I want to have a damage dealer set, I want to have a tank set, and then when you create a new team, you can just say, this is my damage dealer, I'm going to throw them my Memoria set onto this character. It makes it faster to put Memorias on the character, but it doesn't really matter. You have a Memoria vault, which is like a bank that you can put Memorias into. We know about this as well. It has 400 spaces, and your inventory also has 400 spaces. You'll be fine. Also, something to notice, you probably only really need 4-star Memoria. You don't really need 3-star Memoria too much. But when you're starting out the game, you might want to at least hold on to a bunch of 3-star Memoria just to have a bit more variety. And you can sell Memoria for CC as well. The actual CC you get out of this is very little. You get almost nothing out of selling a Memoria, but it at least gets rid of them. So this is basically, you just throw them away. Something to note though is this, and a third thing to keep in mind with Memoria is that usability might be an issue. Not every character can use every Memoria. For example, actually like 99% of Memoria, or not 90%, but like 90% of Memoria every character can use. For example, this one, anyone can use this. Usable by all. But there are a handful of Memoria, and they're all 3-star Memoria. All of these, a lot of these are 3-star Memoria. We look at this and it says usable by Madoka Kaname. These have like really weird effects that are specific to this specific character. Like for example, Madoka gets Dark Cell Disc on her personal, and this is probably the most powerful personal Memoria in the entire game. So if you have a Madoka, get her personal. Hey. But most personals aren't actually that great, so it's not actually that important to hang on to personals. Personals are just a really weird thing for each individual character. I don't really care too much about personals, but you might want to hang on to them for flavor. Just look at them and see what it says with usable, and that's how you know it's personal or not a personal. This one, for example, is Humors. You get draw blast discs. Wow. But yeah, that's basically it for Memoriae. Let's go on to the next section. So at this point, you've pretty much heard about most of what the game has to offer and how to get through it, but there might be a few things that I haven't really talked about. For example, I have not talked about another story down there. Don't worry about another story. I mean, you're gonna do it once you're done with main story. It's not really worth talking about too much. Just do it once you feel powerful enough. But more importantly, there's mirrors. Now, mirrors is what you might have heard is the PvP mode, which might sound daunting, like, oh no, PvP in a mobile game is probably terrible, right? Like, no mobile game is good at PvP. Well, yeah, that's true. And I'm not gonna say that this game has good PvP because it's not really PvP. That's the thing. This game, if people call mirrors PvP, it's more a fake PvP. It's not actual PvP, because the thing is, you're not actually playing against other players. You're still playing against AI controlled enemies. So when you go into mirrors, you're going to be prompted to create a mirrors team. It's just a team you create for, but this one is specifically for mirrors, and it tells you your team power. Don't worry about team power, it doesn't really matter too much right now. And once you go into mirrors, you will be tasked with choosing from one out of three enemies, and fighting an enemy will cost you 1 BP. You can also take 1 BP to just refresh the list of enemies. And what you will do is you will select one of these. Oh, Petscop, nice, it's over. You will select one of these two teams. You can look through any of these 3 teams and see what you want to fight. And once you've seen a team where you're like, I can beat this team, you start the battle. Don't worry about the mirrors points or the opponent bonus or anything like that. The only really important part is, if this opponent bonus says lower range, it means the game thinks this is an easy team. If it says something like same range, the game thinks this team is about as strong as you. And if it said something like higher range, it means the game thinks this is stronger than your team. So if you want to have a good time, just fight against enemies that say low range. And what is there to be gained from doing mirrors? How important is it to kill other people's teams in mirrors? Because these are all teams that have been set up by other players. So once you set up your mirrors team, other people will find this team in the opponent list randomly and will battle you. And then when you log in next day, will tell you like, your team lost 5 times and won 1 time or something. Doesn't really matter. So you might be wondering, okay, I need a strong team, I need to battle many teams, maybe I need to gather points. What is there to be gained? Well, when you win a mirrors match, you get 3 mirrors coins. If you lose a mirrors match, you get 1 mirrors coins. That's basically all that playing mirrors does, at least the individual battles. So what do mirrors coins do? Mirrors coins must be really important, right? Because it's like the PvP, no, it's not really PvP, but it's like the big currency for this game, all right? How important is it? Not actually that important. You have the mirror shop, which refreshes once every month, and the most important part is the mirror shop has Fate Weave tickets in it, but only 10. So you're just gonna play a bunch of mirrors until you can buy the 10 Fate Weave tickets each month, and then mirrors doesn't matter anymore. Like, I know people might be like, oh, but it sucks that whales, if whales have like 5 characters that all have 4 slots, they are gonna have a really powerful team. First, if you don't need to fight those teams. Secondly, even if you lose, you get still mirrors coins. Third, mirrors coins aren't actually that important. And fourth, it does nothing else. So mirrors is pretty inconsequential. Mirrors is probably one of the most useless things in this entire game, to be honest. There are a few formations you can get, like these tertiary formations, which, by the way, are NA inclusive formations. These are not on the Japanese version or any other version. So you can buy a bunch of other formations here, but most of these formations are terrible. We have Mighty Cross, which is also known as the Suicide Cross, because if you use this formation, you will kill yourself very quickly. If you want to have a quick and painful death, this is the one. Apart from that, there's attribute deltas, which are pretty interesting as well, but not really enough for me to talk about right here. But yeah, you're just going to do a whole bunch of mirrors matches each month, so you can buy the 10 Fate Weave tickets, and then it's completely pointless. And like I said, you also get coins if you lose, so it's not even, there's not even any pressure to win. You might have seen something like Mirrors ranking, like 2 or 3 times each year for like a few days, this Mirrors ranking mode gets unlocked, and all you do is you just play a whole bunch of Mirrors matches over like 3 days, a whole ton of them, like 100 matches and more, and at the end of that you get a ranking. This ranking is just a badge that you have on your profile, and it does nothing else. It's just bragging rights. So even during the like tournament ranking mode, you don't even need to win to get rewards, because even if you lose, you still get Mirrors coins, and you can still use those Mirrors coins to buy whatever you need. So there really is no pressure to keep winning in this game mode. And even though whale teams are really strong, also doesn't really matter, because you don't have to fight them, and even if you lose, you still gain stuff. So don't be afraid of mirrors, because it's a fairly inconsequential game mode. You still fight against AI-controlled opponents, which I'm probably going to have to show off in a second. You're still going to have to play against AI-controlled opponents. You get to choose the team you fight against, and you always get the first turn. And as it turns out in this game, having the first turn is pretty darn powerful, because you get to control the stage of the game. I have a terrible setup right now, actually. I didn't even check this. I might lose. But yeah, mirrors doesn't really matter too much. Oh yeah, look at that. Dark is pretty powerful. If you want to have a little pro tip, try not to kill anyone on the enemy team right away, because the more people on the enemy team are alive, the more disc pollution they have. You want to put them all on low HP and then kill them all in one turn to maximize the amount of disc pollution they have throughout the game. Anyway, that was an easy win. Yay! It will just tell you you've got mirrors points and you've got mirror coins and you've done this well. It gives you like a number on how well you did. Doesn't matter at all. Actually, I've already the maximum mirrors points. It truly doesn't matter. That is basically all that mirrors is. One thing to really note though is something rather important though, is you want to do at least one mirrors match each day, because there's a daily mission. You see there's daily missions for battling in mirrors, and there's one for battling once in mirrors, and the daily mission for battling once in mirrors gives you a special currency. It gives you the daily ticket. And what does the daily ticket do? Or the daily coin rather? The daily coin allows you that you can only get through this, you can only get the daily coin by doing one mirrors match each day and checking the mission for it. The daily coins just allow you to get a whole bunch of different materials. Like for example, let's say I need a mascots main. I've got 65 daily coins. I can just say, okay, let me get a bunch of mascots main. And these are for awakening. These are awakening materials. So you can use the daily coins to buy hard to get awakening materials. I'm not going to spend all of my stuff, but just to show you, you can do this. That's pretty good. So what you basically want to do is, so to summarize, just get the 10 Fate Weave tickets each month for a total of 400 mirrors coins, and apart from that, do one match each week, or each day, sorry, do one match each day to get the daily coin. And that's all you need to do with mirrors. Don't be afraid of it. You don't even need to have a good team for it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it too much. Just play one match a day, you're fine. Okay, so now we've got the final section. We're going to give you a whole bunch of tips that are very important for beginners as well. So first off, if you try to get powerful support, like I've talked about this, about having this level 100 support that gets you through the game. How do you actually get new supports? Like you could just play through a bunch of stages, and at the beginning of a stage you get to select a support, and if you aren't currently following that person, then at the end of the stage it asks you, hey, do you want to follow this person? that's pretty good and all. But if you know a bunch of people who are really powerful already, like for example, I can tell you there's a guy called Lord of Fee who is really good. So you have this little menu up here where you can find players. It will give you a bunch of players who it says, hey, like, do you want to follow these players? It's like a suggestion. You can search for a player's name. You can search for a player's ID. How do you know what a player's ID is? For example, if you want to give someone else your ID, if you're on the home screen, you can click up here on your favorite magical girl, and it will show you a player ID right here. If you want to follow me, I have a pretty powerful support setup with a level 100 4-slot dark, which will absolutely destroy everything you point her at, and she can solo the entirety of main story, so don't forget to follow me. But also apart from that, some other characters or people that I could point you towards is here Canloro, very, very strong as well. Oh my god, that's Rivend. Rivend is also another one you should probably follow if you want to have a powerful support setup. And of course, Lord of Fee and Envy, which are the two most notorious whales probably for this entire game. So if you want to have a really nice time with the game, follow these two and me and the other few that I pointed out, and you're gonna have a real bunch of really powerful. 1,700 people are following that guy. 1,200 people are following that guy. Yeah, whales. You want to have them as your friends. Next up, let's say you've started the game now and you don't know what to gacha for. You have this big gacha in front of you. You might have an overview of all the characters you might want to have at some point. But you're not quite sure, like, should I draw for this character? Should I get this character? Is this character good? Is that character good? I'm not quite sure what to do. Here's a bunch of really important pointers. First off, as I said earlier in the section about Memorias, Memoria slots are more important than anything else. If you have a character where, if you look at the tier list, and it says like Jeanne d'Arc, she's the most powerful character in the game right now. If you have her at one slot, and you have another character who's like way lower ranked than her, let's say something like Momoko, for example. He's in the background here with his giant, huge ass smile. If you have her at 2 slots, for example, you might think, okay, but Dark is really powerful, right? So even at 1 slot, she's going to be, on average, better than Momoko, right? No, not actually. It's actually debatable. It's still debatable if a 2-slot Momoko is actually better than a 1-slot Dark, but I would actually lean towards saying I would rather take the 2-slot Momoko. And Momoko is kind of a meme, because Momoko is like she's a natural 4-star, she's an SSR, but she is unlimited, so a lot of people just randomly draw her, and she's Charge Gorilla, and Charge is the worst disc in the game, so people always are like, oh no, I got charged by Momoko, I hate Momoko, he's terrible. And yeah, she is one of the worst mecha in the entire game, but 2 slots versus a 1-slot Dark, I don't know, I might still take the Momoko, just because 2 slots are just over 1 slot. It's just really powerful. If you go one step further, I told you that active Memoria aren't that important, but they're still nice to have. So I would say that even a 4-slot Momoko is still better than a 2-slot Dark. So it's probably, so you can say that like from 1 slot to 2 slot and from 2 slot to 4 slot, tier list doesn't matter. A 2 slot of a lower tier will always be better than a 1 slot of a higher tier. A 4 slot of a lower tier will always be better than a 2 slot or a 1 slot of the higher tier. Slots is where it's at. Keep that in mind always. So you might see a cool character. Let's say, for example, they release a new character tomorrow. Or let's say that Holy Alina, which is also a really powerful character, got released tomorrow and she's only available for a week and you don't have many gems. Let's say you only have like these many gems. And you're like, man, I might only be able to get like 1 copy of her. Is that worth it? No. No. Unless you want to collect many characters. If you're a collector, go ahead. But if you're looking for gameplay power, here's what you do. You save your Magia stones for 2 or 3 months, maybe even longer, okay? I already told you that you can take your initial few characters that you get and you can drag them all the way through main story without any problem. You can also then buy more slots for your characters, and by doing that, you get really powerful characters that aren't even natural 4 stars. In that time, you're going to keep saving until you are able to have like 200 pulls or 300 pulls. Somewhere between that. Once you have somewhere between 200 and 300 pulls and a new character comes up and you see, I like this character. Let's say, for example, that tomorrow there's a new Fate Weave for Kyoko, for example. You say, I really like Kyoko. Or there's a character going to come up in a few months called Kanai. She's a dark type and she's a blast gorilla. And you say, a dark type blast gorilla? That sounds pretty good. I want her. Now, some people might look at the tier list and see, oh, on the tier list, she's not that high because she has a terrible connect and a terrible Magia, but whatever. She also doesn't have much attack. But that aside, you're going to say, man, I want a dark type blast gorilla, and I don't want to wait until Cool Homura, who is the best dark type blast gorilla in the game. You see a Kanai and you're like, okay, I have 200 to 300 pulls. I really want to pull Kanai, but the tier lists and other people are telling me she's bad. Doesn't matter. Don't listen to tier lists. Don't listen to other people. What matters is slots. Tier lists do not take slots into consideration. Tier lists will always only tell you what characters are worth at 4 slots. They do not tell you what characters are worth at different types of slot levels. That's not what tier lists are about. Because once you say, okay, but I have a character who has more slots than another character, tier lists fall apart. Tier lists don't matter at all. Only thing that matters is slots. I know I keep repeating this because it's so important. Like, the most important thing you can take away from this video or any of these videos is how important slots are. So, you've come across Kanai, you have 250 pulls, you're going to pull for Kanai if you want to. I'm not going to do it, but if you want to, if you like really wanted to, you could pull for Kanai. You could get like 2 slots of her. Even if you only get like 2 slots of her, or let's say you get 3 slots of it. Let's say you don't even get 4 slots. If you really want to get 4 slots of someone, you probably want to have like 400 pulls or something. But let's say you're going to get 2 slots. You're golden. Having 2 slots of a blast gorilla that is either light or dark, you're completely golden. Throw I Made Friends on there. Throw a Bible on there. Throw any powerful 2 passive Memoriae you can find. You're golden. You're going to take that Kanai and you're going to blast to victory with those 2 slots. So yeah, that's basically how you should treat the gacha. You're gonna save a bunch until a character comes who you really want when you have at least 200 pulls, and then you're gonna go for at least 2 slots. This is the important part. You want to have at least 2 slots. That's why you're saving, because this game has a pity system. If you did not get a magical girl, a 4-star magical girl in 100 rolls, you're going to get one on the 100th roll. So with 200 pulls, you will get at least, guaranteed at least, 2 natural 4 stars. Now, if you have bad luck, they might not be the focus magical girl, because the focus magical girl is 60% rate up, so 40% you get anything else. But even so, let's say you get spooked by Momoko twice. Then you at least have 2 slots Momoko. And as we know, 2 slots is already really powerful. So yeah, this is basically, I know this is a long section with me repeating a lot of the same stuff, but I really, like I said, I can't stress how important that is. One thing to notice is that there's also the premium Fate Weave, which is always active. Don't draw on this. I mean, there might be some events where you get like free rolls for the premium weave, but apart from that, don't ever draw the premium weave, because this just has all the unlimited girls, and the unlimited girls are all like not actually that good. There's a handful of unlimited girls that are actually pretty good, but for the most part, most of the really powerful characters are limited, and that's why you want to save. Don't draw on premium Fate with save. Wait for the really powerful limited girls to come around, and then draw on those instead. And that's supposed to be that important lesson for you to learn. Also, something that I almost forgot to mention is usually characters only go to a maximum of 4 stars. For example, Misa right now can only reach 4 stars, and this means he's basically stuck at level 80. But a natural 4-star will be able to go to level 105-star. So you might be thinking, okay, that means that natural 4-stars are just better than anything else, right? For the most part, yes, but there are a few exceptions, in that sometimes specific characters will get uncapped. For example, Yachio, she started out as a level 2 as a 2-star character, but look at that, she was uncapped which basically now allows anyone who plays the game to get her all the way to 5-star level 100. And I can tell you right now, Yachio is a pretty good character, and because she's a natural 2-star, I think she's a 2-star, or 3-star? 2-star. She can actually get slots a lot easier than anyone else. And because she has such an easy time getting slots, it's very easy to get to 4 slots. And because we know how powerful and important slots are, this means that Yachio will carry you really far. Because it's very easy to get her to 4 slots and she can reach level 100. A bunch of other characters who can reach level 100 right now, Tsuruno for example, even though she is not a natural 4-star either. There is, for example, Homura. I mean, she's a natural 4-star, but you can actually buy her for 300 Magia chips. So she's like the only natural 4-star you can buy. At some point in the future, Nanaka will get uncapped to 5 stars. And I can tell you right now, Nanaka is the most powerful non-natural 4-star in the game. And once she reaches level 100, she will actually be one of the most powerful characters in the game, even though she's not a natural 4-star. She's not an SSR, and yet because of her uncap and because she's a pretty good character, she's a blast gorilla, that's why. She's able to reach an insanely high power level, and you can basically get her at 4 slots very easily. And that's the power of having low rarity characters with 4 slots that you definitely should not pass up, especially when they get an uncap at some point in the future. Something else that is rather important to mention if you want to raise your girls is that you will run into the problem if you try to raise too many girls at once, that you won't have enough CC QB coins to raise all of your girls. Now you might be wondering, how do you get more CC? Well, for one, most events, not training events, but most events will have CC available to buy during the event. There will be packets of 100,000 QB points, of which there will be like 10 or 20 maybe. And once you have used up all of those, you can then buy like the smaller packets of like 1,000 QB coins. But those will last indefinitely. So you can, during events, buy QB coins for the event currency. Apart from that, you will just get CC, I mean, of course, they're called curse chips, but they're QB coins. You just get them whenever you do any stage, but you'll get only a few of them for any stage you do. Sometimes you get them for missions or for other quests that you do. So there are different ways of getting curse chips, but there's not really any way to just farm them. You don't really specifically farm curse chips, you just get them while playing the game. The reason why I mention all of this is because I know a lot of people, when they go to Reddit, for example, they post something like, oh, I'm trying to awaken my girl, but I don't have the CC for it. Let's say, for example, I take a character that I could still awaken. For example, my Ika right here, I wanted to awaken her, but awakening her, it doesn't show right now, but it would take like 300,000 QB coins. And then if I want to get her to 5-star, she doesn't have 5-star right now, but imagine if I want to get her to 5-star, if she had it available, that would take 1 million. I can also enhance my Magia. I haven't really talked about this because it's not really too important at all for a beginner to enhance Magia, but you can enhance Magia as well with episode level. And there's a reason why I didn't really talk about episode level and Magia level in this beginner's guide at all, because a beginner doesn't really need it to know about enhancing Magia level and enhancing the episode level. It's not really as important as people might make it sound like. But the thing to note is that also it costs CC to increase the level of your Magia, and as the final level of the Magia also costs 1 million CC. So if you say, for example, I want to level up all of my girls, I want to take all of my girls and enhance their Magia all the way to level 5. I want to enhance everything that I can. By the way, in order to enhance Magia level higher, they need a higher episode level. Episode level, they just gain experience for it whenever you're in a battle. So whenever you're in any battle, you get episode experience. And the higher your episode level is, the higher your Magia level can be pushed to. It doesn't really matter for beginners right now. Like I said, I'm gonna do something else about this in a later video maybe. But if you have all of these gods and you say, I want to awaken all of my gods, I want to enhance the Magia of all my gods, you're gonna run out of CC really quickly, and then you're gonna be stuck in a situation where you're like, okay, I can't really farm CC, but I really need CC to awaken my character. So my tip for you guys, basically, to cut this short, is I already told you that you basically start with 2 or 3 girls you start out with, and then you start saving. Just only focus on those 2 and 3 girls at the start, and just don't focus too much on other girls. Just only focus on these 2 or 3 girls, and then keep a good stash of CCs around, a good stash of some other awakening materials around, for when you actually go and say, I'm going to draw like 200 or 300 pulls on this character, and I'm going to really get this character at 2 slots and 3 slots, and then you're going to have the CC available to get that character all the way up that you want. Or let's say a character gets uncapped that you really like for example, Nanaka gets uncapped, and you want to get that Nanaka all the way up to level 100 and all her Magia level up to level 5. If you don't splurge all your CC on characters you're not going to use, like for example, if you're not going to use Asuka, why spend millions of CC unlocking all of her stuff? I mean, if you're trying to be completionist, that's fine, but you can do that later. You don't need to do that right now. As a beginner, like I said, just focus on 2 or 3 girls, and you're not gonna run out of CC that quickly. Okay, so now that we've come to the end of the video, first off, I'm going to be doing more in detail, in-depth guide videos coming in the future, as well as maybe talking about a few of the events when they come around, to give you a bit of a better insight. And for now, though, I will point you as a resource where you can talk to other people about the game and mingle with the big community that we have built, as well as finding more resources on, for example, the drop list that I linked below in the description is something that I also found on that server. And it's a Discord server, the Discord for the Magia record, where you will always 24/7 have people around who can help you with any question. There's a channel called NA-help, NA-help. If you have any question about the game as a newcomer, you just throw that question in there, and you will have many people who will come to you, and they will drown you in help. They will throw so much help that you're gonna drown. You're like, stop, I don't need more help. So that's basically what I wanted to point you at as well. Like I said, more guides coming, and if you want to see all of those guides, you want to hang around and see more Magia content, like I am doing a whole bunch of story-related stuff. If you want to know more about story, if you want to know more about the lore, if you want to know about the anime, I'm going to do a whole bunch of content around the anime as well. This is the place. So hit that subscribe button, and I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you guys next time.